Why is he even going along with this charade and roping her into these ceremonies anyway? We all know she'd rather be back in Montecito hanging out with Tyler Perry. We all know this. Or Gail. We all know she'd rather be elsewhere. Who knows what's going on in that mind of hers, but I can tell you she's got absolutely no will to be at these proceedings, aside from the fact that it'll be bumping up her merching opportunities in the future. She has no reverence for the Queen. Well, it was a very confronting image today to watch Meghan Markle curtsy at the coffin of Her Majesty. It was obscene to watch her today standing next to the husband in that dumb hat. She looked so stupid in a hat. It was obscene. The temerity of the girl. And of course, I'm not complaining about the fact that she showed her respect. It would have been absolutely odd and insulting if she hadn't have done so. But the dichotomy is that it's also an insult that she did. That she couldn't honour Her Majesty while she was alive. And there she does really a rather fairly deep curtsy on the occasion of her death. It's very hard to process. But then as soon as she curtsies, you see, one or the other grabbed each other by the hand, and, everybody else there perfectly able to walk along solemnly, all these other devoted couples, able to do their business without clutching each other. But immediately, as soon as the curtsy is performed, they clutching hands, as if they're off along some casual lovers' lane stroll along the Thames. The vulgarity of it, it overwhelms me. Absolutely overwhelms me. Now, I know I might look like rather a hypocrite bringing this up because I'm sitting here with painted lips and lashes, but why does she drag herself up so? For a sombre occasion where she's had the deep privilege of meeting Her Majesty's coffin for her final journey to Buckingham Palace. I understand that most ladies want to put on their other face, polish up, look fresh. You can understand that. As Catherine did when she received flowers with William and the Harkles. But this girl, apparently that 45-minute wait they had before they were seen at Windsor was because she needed to, steam iron her hair and get the makeup done. And we see her on the way to greet Her Majesty's coffin, which is painful enough for us to watch in itself. And she's dressed up as if she's off to Soho House. And yes, I understand I'm sitting here, all dolled up myself. I'm not meeting the Queen's coffin. It's slightly different. She is the Queen's granddaughter-in-law. Much to her chagrin. And there she is. Painted! For the gods, as if her life depends on it. This ain't RuPaul, my dear. What do you think this is? Lip sync for your lives? I mean, It's heartbreaking. It's so vulgar. And it's such a contrast to Zara. Do you see how Zara did it in her moment of grief accompanying Princess Anne? The hair scraped back. No makeup. None needed. Meghan still can't get it in her head that she doesn't need to act. She doesn't need to perform a part. Well, I suppose in some ways she does, because otherwise we'd just see exactly what she is, wouldn't we, when that mask falls. Anything to help prop up her mask, I suppose. I see as the royals were on parade today that Queen Camilla and Princess Catherine took one car to greet the coffin, and in the other was our darling Countess Sophie, who may go on to be the Duchess of Edinburgh in the coming months, we shall see. And her. Apparently she has postponed lots of those dreadful podcasts, so at least mercifully I won't have to sit through one of them again for a little while. Cancelling all kinds of things. My latest information regarding Harry's memoir is that it will be delayed until next year. Now, I am aware that certain commentators have stated that he wants to rush it out this year, but my understanding is that it will be delayed until next year at this point, but we shall see. Although it's nice to think that there's a spanner in their works when it comes to their merching, unfortunately, they will be able to use this time of mourning to their advantage if they want to. So even though everything's up in the air right now, we have to come to terms with the fact that they can still use their current profile in all these rituals and ceremonies and proceedings to bump up attention for their own wants and needs. But that's as Mebbies. They'll do what they will, won't they? No matter what station they are in life, no matter what's going on in their lives, they will always use and abuse the situation for their advantage without any apparent feeling for others. But if that woman really wanted to honour the Queen, she would have scuttled back to Montecito on the first flight out of here. I wouldn't have minded. I wouldn't have said that it was an insult. I would have said that it was the most honourable thing that she could do, just to get out of town and leave Harry to it. But of course, he always needs her by his side, clutching onto him, doesn't he? Always needs her there. Please understand, my dears, that the only reason that Meghan is participating in any of these events is simply because Harry comes with Meghan. Harry comes with Meghan. And they are not going to ban Harry from his own grandmother's funeral, even though he treated her so disgracefully. There has to be a show of dignity. There has to be an understanding that she loved her grandson, despite what he did to her. And there has to be an understanding that before Markle came along, he served for many years under the Queen. And just as that sort of dignity should not be stripped from Andrew, same applies to Harry, fools though they are. Personally, I don't think it was necessary to put the wife in a car together with the noble Countess of Wessex. No, I don't. I think she should have made her own arrangements to travel there, or out of view, whatever it is. You know, in the sort of vein of Fergie, you know, make your own arrangements, you know, you can come to the funeral, but I don't see where any particular special attention needs to be paid to her in that respect. But, you know, they're dealing with Harry. They're dealing with Harry here, my dear. So, who knows? The mind boggles what goes on behind the scenes there. But in some ways, sometimes he has to be pacified. Well, my fruits, time is of the essence today. I don't have much of it, but I wanted to pop in and keep some of you company for a little while. You can sit down and have a cup of tea and a giggle with me, but there's not an incredible amount of structure to today's broadcast. But I must speak, well, of two things. Firstly, I must speak on the absolutely indescribable outpouring of respect from all corners of the globe. Everybody from our naughty cousins in America, such passion, such reverence for our way, which many of us have for your way. And it's, you know, that very strong alliance that we have that some quarters are trying to pull down at the moment. It's so nice to know that it is there and strong, and because some of the media have an agenda, it isn't always painted as that visible to the world, but we know it's there. Just as we've seen this week that the secret is out in the United Kingdom, that, you know, this big secret that has been concealed for the past few years, that the United Kingdom love the monarchy. They love living in a constitutional monarchy. They loved the Queen with all their hearts, and despite everything you've seen over the last few years, they love our new king. It's shocked me. It has surprised me. The crowds, they're saying today, the queue to see Her Majesty lying in state, 5 miles long. The crowds all over the country, from Northern Ireland, you know, throughout this tour, beloveds in Wales, all over, lining the streets in their droves, 20 deep, age groups, from bairns to those in their dotage. It's astonishing. I can't speak of how humbling it is. And I've got to tell you, it's taken everybody by surprise. So, yeah, number one, I wanted to thank you for your thanks. Everybody all around the world, all creeds, all colours, all kinds. You've seen for yourself. And I want to recommend, as I have before, a channel called The Royal Family Channel. It is not an official channel of the Royal Family. That's one reason why I have a big problem with it. It's very naughty because it paints itself as it is. It's a news channel. But it is a splendid resource for those of you who aren't just into the Harkle stuff and really want to see great candid footage, some of it very long, of all the goings on. that's the first thing I wanted to speak to, the joy of the sort of sense of togetherness and the reverence from all over the world. Secondly, just the astonishment of the magic that we are seeing this week. Forgive me if I'm not being very eloquent today, but I am overawed by how this is playing out, by how the young people in the kingdom are being treated to something that was actually urgently needed. And though Her Majesty saved this nation in many ways with her life, she is now doing the same thing in death. We are seeing a regeneration before our eyes. We are seeing a sort of enactment, dare I say it, of the resurrection of Christ. And I'm not comparing Charles to Christ in any ways, but as one of his earthly representatives, as you may call it. You know, the crown is obviously beneath the crown of the Lord, the Holy King. But you are seeing, in a way that is never seen anywhere else across the globe, in a theatrical setting, with deliciously ancient ceremonies, ancient language, being rejuvenated, being seen in context. You are seeing our population, the young ones coming up who have heard such bad things about the monarchy over the last few years, you are seeing them absorb why it is such a sophisticated constitution, how the sovereign is held to account by his representation of the four corners of our nation and the many corners of all the Commonwealth realms beyond. The heavy burden placed on a sovereign, the ability for a Prince of Wales, who's had the longest apprenticeship known to man, 73 years of it, in one click of the finger, with the gasp of Her Majesty's last breath, being able and capable to take the mantle. Unlike other forms of constitutional government all over the world, the magic of a monarchical society is that our head of state now has had 73 years to build relationships with heads of states all over the world. He is one of the most widely travelled men in the world, one of the most experienced men in the world. He has had this lifetime's worth of training, a lifetime's worth of building relationships, and he can absolutely hit the ground running. He was prepared for it decades ago. So unlike, Liz Truss, who has just come to the role, she is new and green with no relationships, few relationships, and certainly not deep and profound ones with world leaders and presidents and prime ministers. Charles already has that. He's met them all. He knows and deeply understands the needs of his country and his subjects and other countries. It is really exciting. It is a really exciting time that brings a lot of sweet to the bitterness. And I've spoken to you so many times about the theatre of royalty and why that's important. I've got several friends, many friends, in the sort of woke world, artistically speaking, some of them directors, and very few of them, I'd say, well, there's some secret ones that, of course, love a bit of the old monarchy, but very few of them would speak to it, and lots of them would disparage it. And I've never understood how they can be so deeply and profoundly into their craft and theatre and not understand the joy of theatre with regards to our constitutional monarchy and all the ceremonial rituals and ceremonies. And you are finding people now, it's all over the news when you switch it on, people saying, I never knew this would hit me, I never understood the beauty, middle-aged men talking about this, young students coming through, and they get to see the beauty of the Accession Council. They get to see the beauty, during this sad period of mourning. This is one thing that I wish I had seen with my own eyes in beautiful, beautiful Edinburgh. Edinburgh is one of the most beautiful cities in this land. I feel like I am in a storybook when I'm there. Many of you who've visited from abroad tell me about your experiences there. It has to be felt to be believed. And it's one of those places I wish I'd lived. But I haven't had the opportunity so far. But that sight of the vigil with the four siblings surrounding Her Majesty's coffin, what a privilege it must have been for the congregation, the crowd, to walk past. I believe 20,000 people came to try and view, numbers of that kind, to walk past in solemnity and pay respects to Her Majesty at the side of her body. It is so moving to see, so honourable of the Queen's children. Princess Anne, I've just fallen in love with all over again. She just looks like a little girl, doesn't she? You see that even after 96 years, no one's prepared to lose their parents. It's always a deep, heartfelt shock. And wow, the beauty of it rocked me. I have wept for the past couple of days on many occasions at the beauty of all our ceremonies and traditions. I'm so glad they haven't been done away with. I'm so glad they are being seen by the young ones coming up who'd never been privy to this. Well, none of us have been privy to what's going on this week, my dear, for 70 years. And even back then, it was not able to be broadcast all around the world. So these are firsts in many ways. But just like 1,000 other traditions in hundreds of countries out there, from Japan to beautiful Aboriginal rituals and ceremonies, beautiful in New Zealand, Africa, take your pick. These ancient, beautiful rituals, they're what bring the richness to a society and aid a sense of national identity, aid a sense of pride in your nation. There's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to something that brought us where we land. Because we landed in a free society where, at the moment, we still have free speech, where we have the rule of law, and all of these things inspired the empire and beyond. Our language, the English language, the beauty of that, the inheritance of our rich literature and artistry, all of these things that have reverberated around the world are nothing to be ashamed of. And I saw some article about somebody who was throwing a bit of shade to us for having an unelected head of state. Well, I don't want an elected head of state. I'm very pleased with the hereditary head of state that we have, because it means that somebody like Charles, as you see this week, I wouldn't go so far as to say is a reluctant king, but as has been made clear, he takes his kingship with a sense of heavy burden. This is a burden for the rest of his life, for the rest of his days, that he has vowed to take this commitment. He is not our head of state through ambition. He is not our head of state through various politic and politicking. It is by accident of birth. And I think that there is a serene power in that. The fact that we have an unelected head of state doesn't make our people feel any less powerful than those in a republic, because we still get to vote on our prime minister from all stripes and all parties. And most of us feel really rather safe and secure that we have a non-partisan head of state holding them to account and overarching the Houses of Parliament and His Majesty's government. It's a source of great comfort to many of us, and it's good that the rest of the world is getting an insight now as into why that is. I've been thrilled with the reception Queen Camilla has garnered. It is absolutely joyous. These are crowds of all ages that are not showing their resentment to her for private matters that happened decades ago. She's being embraced, We are seeing a new style from Charles, which is right for this generation. He is a warmer personality. That's not to say that Her Majesty, her late Majesty, was not warm in her private life, because she was. And so many stories are coming out of the woodwork this week about that famous twinkle in her eye, her mischievous sense of humour, and her warmth. But in public, she was cool. In public, she was rather inscrutable. Apart from the odd moment of jollity here and there, she was a lot cooler. It wasn't a tactile, demonstrative queen. I would not be. Had I been, by accident of birth, my dear, your new monarch, I would not have been anywhere near as touchy and feely as Charles has been over the last few days. But it suits him, it suits the times, and it is warmth we're seeing, isn't it? People are responding to his warmth, that he's putting out there, and Camilla's, because they are, it's like the soft glow of a fire in a cosy cottage, or at Highgrove, some big fancy house. It is that soft glow of the embers that we get from Charles and Camilla as they work their audience, their subjects, the king's subjects, my dear. It is that fiery warmth that we are feeling, and people are lapping it up. All of a sudden, Charles has gone from, this rather disdained son with a reputation for being rather temperamental and petty. Overnight, all of a sudden, it happened overnight. He is being received as the father of our nation, or grandfather of our nation, to be however you want to paint it, my dear. A sort of daddy figure. He is a dashing, handsome 73. Good Lord, when I think about, I've got a particular relative, I've got to tell you, who is around the same age as Prince Charles, and he's very old for his age. He is older in spirit than the Queen was at 96, who was still like a little girl in many ways with that twinkle in her eye. But Charles has a fabulous constitution, full of energy, and let's hope he has many glorious years in front of him in good health. And let's pray for Camilla as well, his Queen, because she's older than Charles, But we are seeing a warmer couple. We are still going to, as neutral and as kingly as Charles has told us he wants to be and is going to be, and less controversial in many ways. We will always see their warmth. We will always see their mischief. We will always see their naughty side. Dare I say it, rather sexy. We've gotten to see a couple of glimpses with the two famous pen moments that have emerged, with the cartridge pen leaking yesterday, where he sort of snaps on this bloody thing, and that stinking pen. Well, as much as people might moan about it, I think for the vast majority of us it's just endearing to see a little bit of humanity there, and it's Charles, and we're going to get to know Charles very well now that he's been unleashed as our new king. Incredibly kingly, incredibly royal, rather sexy. I am just absolutely delighted that everything that I've spoken to you on over the past year, and many of you have actually said in the comment section, and I greatly appreciate you telling me this, that you've acknowledged that what I've been trying to explain and tell you over the past year is coming to fruition before our eyes. I always had a great faith in Charles. I always understood that he has flaws like any other human being, but he was a diligent hard worker, a deep thinker, and as anybody who's worked closely with him and knows will tell you, he has thought about this and his role over decades. He has prepared for this. He's even taken audiences, we hear this week, with David Cameron in the past to rehearse for his role. So even as he meets with Prime Minister Truss once a week, every Wednesday, isn't it, to meet with his Prime Minister, he's done it before with David Cameron. Her Majesty allowed him to do that, so that he was not just plunging in at the deep end. He is fully prepared, fully capable for this role, and because of the physical impracticalities that are going to be thrust on him now at this age, in many ways he's more capable than the Queen was in her twilight years, because what was happening to her physically must have prevented her from carrying out obviously some physical duties, but it was such a workload for a Queen. He's so capable. And let's face it, that rather grand side of King Charles enjoys being king. Amongst the sadness and amongst this heavy burden that he now has, he is a king that's going to enjoy being the king and enjoy being the boss. There is that side to his personality, and there's no reason why it can't work for him. I've never had the feeling that William, for example, is really looking forward to the day that he becomes king. I think there was a natural reluctance for him, and he obviously grew up with a lot of tragedy in his life as well. But as we've spoken about before, he's come to terms with his destiny, his responsibility, and he has such a respect for the position he finds himself in now. So I have no worries about that. But I don't think he's going to enjoy it so much as King Charles is. He has a certain predisposition to this sort of... In a way, it's almost like, can one imagine if Margaret Rose was to have been born first and was destined to be Queen instead of Her Majesty, well, they both would have been entirely capable, but with very different styles. And I think Margaret Rose, I mean, then you really would have seen a queen, my dear. And in many ways, I would have found it rather enjoyable and really quite fabulous. But, you know, in many ways, she was more royal than Queen Elizabeth. Not to disparage Elizabeth, but in style, I mean, you know. So, yeah, that puts me in mind of what we might see during Charles's reign. A little bit more, oh, dare I use a Meghanism, a little bit more of the diva. Maybe just a little bit here and there. And why not? The past week has also showcased what I love about the British climate and British weather, especially around this time of year. As you know, I love the autumn, and September's one of the golden months for me. And we get all kinds of weathers, but the rain that we experienced this week felt very apt and suitable. When I look at footage of Diana's funeral, for example, the intense sunlight and the heat looks, well, apart from being horridly uncomfortable, it doesn't sit well with me. And although I didn't want to be seeing the Queen's funeral week in the driving sleet and snow and blizzards, because it would be very hard for people to attend and for events to take place, I think it was really rather lovely because I love the rain. I've liked and enjoyed seeing some of the gloomy, dismal weather that we had a few days ago, but then to contrast with that, we had the most incredible, beautiful, sun-dappled day in Edinburgh. Beautiful light, beautiful weather, and then today with the procession behind the coffin, just the right amount of lovely September light that is clement, not overcast. You know, unfortunately, the Jubilee is where I would have really rather liked to see the very sunny, hot weather. We didn't quite get that, so it is unpredictable. But when it's right, it is just right, and that's what we've had so far. And hopefully, we'll get suitable weather over the next few days. Word on the street is that this Queen's funeral is going to be the most attended, largest occasion that the United Kingdom has ever seen. And it's on a scale and breadth really rather unimaginable. Don't quote me on that, because I know that a lot of Victoria's Jubilees, for example, were splendid extravaganzas, and you know, the Queen's own coronation shipped in a cast of millions from all across the empire. So please don't quote me on that, but I have heard it said several times that this is on a scale, you know, that is really rather staggering and unbelievable. And I've spent a lot of time this week thinking about our wonderful armed forces, our police, everybody involved in the logistics and the planning of this, which so far, you know, Operation London Bridge and Unicorn and all the associated operations have gone absolutely without hitch. You know, from the moment the Queen passed, everything just spun into operation all up and down the country. And you know, it is the pride of our nation, and I want to thank, because I know, and I'm told in the comments, that there are those of you with family members who work on behalf of the royal family. I actually have quite a few members of nobility, believe it or not, that watch this broadcast, and that is the truth. But not just nobles, you know, workers, courtiers, civil offices all around the United Kingdom, councils, everybody who is working to make this happen. You are the pride of our nation. We thank you so much. We thank those of you in service for your service. It's humbling. We are grateful. We are nothing without you. Thank you. Those who are going to be keeping everybody safe in what is really rather a dangerous time for London, as it gets so hugely overpopulated over the next few days. The policemen who are there covertly chaperoning these 5-mile long queues, the intelligence services that are making sure trouble is kept at bay, everybody risking their own safety for the people's. So much gratitude, so much love. And the royal family themselves, who put themselves in harm's way every day to go out and meet the people, to talk to the crowds, to shake hands with thousands. who walk the processions and parades, totally vulnerable. It was obscene to watch her today standing next to the husband in that dumb hat. She looked so stupid in a hat. It was obscene, but I listened. When the Lord's Prayer was recited, I listened to those words. Forgive those who trespass against us. That's what the Lord commanded for his prayer. These are the words that Her Majesty will have known so well, and that Charles also knows. So as much as it angers me as it does you to see them there, I understand. And I lean in to the wisdom in those words that is followed by our Sovereign Lady, our late Sovereign Lady of happy memory, and our existing, reigning Sovereign. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Well, the sad thing is that, as that was being recited, you saw William and Harry reeling it off, and I'm sure both of them would have been thinking the same thing. Yes, I should. William thinking, well, yes, I should forgive Harry that trespassed against me and my wife. Unfortunately, Harry, who's never going to get it, be thinking the same thing about William. I should forgive William. I should be forgiving William and Catherine for besmirching my wife. If only they'd apologise to me and hold themselves accountable. If only they'd do that. Give me the strength, O Lord. No! No, Henry! You're the one that's been played by your wife, and then you played your own family. And you're the one who was led into temptation. But will you be delivered from evil? That's in your own hands, my boy. But this is the kind of opportunity when you should be taking a good long look at yourself. But you daren't, had you? You daren't take a good long look at yourself and what you've done. You're absolutely in denial of the pain you inflicted on poor grandmama. In absolute denial. Well, thank you for indulging me while I had a little ramble, my dears. I just wanted to bring you my thoughts, some abstract thoughts from the last couple of days and this extraordinary week. As I say, time is of the essence, so it's rather difficult for me to bring you something more succinct or more focused at the present time, but we'll see what the coming days bring. It's surprise after surprise, and I'm going through my own learning process this week. Learning values of royalty and monarchy that even I wasn't really aware of until they were shown and illustrated to me so very powerfully and viscerally. It's really rather magnificent and wonderful. After my time on this earthly plane is done, then the kingdom can do what it will, my dear. If it wants to overthrow the monarchy or have a republic or some other form of whatever it is, fair enough. But I do hope and I pray that my lifetime, be it long or short, be it short or long, my dear, I hope that my lifetime is under the reign of a constitutional monarchy, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is the best way. As far as I'm concerned, suits me and my personality, my really rather romantic personality that enjoys the theatre of it and the tradition, the age of it, and the spectacle, as Megs and Has would say. Yes, even the spectacle of it. The splendour. Just like within this frame and my appearance here, I think life is more fun-filled and joyous when you dress it up a bit. And in the last couple of years, everybody's encouraged, go home, work from home, don't dress up life, work in your tracksuits, your sneakers, informal clothes have become in vogue. Everyone dresses as if they're either going to sleep over, some kind of slumber party, or, really rather blandly and beigely. And I don't want to live in some beige world where everything is just so casual. Pomp and circumstance and costume and the bedazzlement of splendid jewels. Yes, if you want to see them as some sort of artificial guff that's meaningless and doesn't mean anything and has no power, well, all I can say is I feel sorry for you. Everybody's different. Everybody sees life through a different lens, but for me, life would lack any sort of thrill and joy without those accoutrements, without the sparkle of a dazzling gem here, there and everybody. So it suits me just fine. I hope that I always live under the reign of King Charles, King William and even King George. So bring on the drama. Let's see what happens next in this live living theatre that we are seeing before us. The life of royalty. Splendid. Lots of love to you, my fruits. Stay fruity. Stay on royal duty. And my tip jar is in the description box below if you'd like to throw a few sovereigns in the cap. Some pennies, some florins, some shillings and pence, you know, half a crown, my dear, or twopence. Feed the birds, twopence a bag, whatever you will, my dear. Chuck it in the cap. And thank you, no, sincerely. I will see you on the next broadcast. Toodle pip!